Welcome back. You're watching The Buck Stops Here. Time now for our special focus on the Prime Minister's constituency, Benaras. The Banarsi sari was once a byword for sartorial elegance. Legend has it that even the Buddha was laid to rest in brocade that was hand-woven from Benaras. But is that all a thing of the past? As Chinese silk descends on the Banarasi market and power looms threaten to displace handlooms, is one of India's oldest traditions under threat. To revive traditional textiles, some of India's leading designers will be in the Prime Minister's constituency of Varanasi tomorrow. But are they up against impossible odds? And what of the recent controversial proposal by the government to actually repeal the Handloom Act, something that has been put on hold after protests? Joining us now is BJP leader Shaina NC, a designer herself, who's leading the designers to Benaras. With me in the studio is Reena Dhaka, well-known designer. Joining me from Benaras tonight is Ritu Kumar, of course, one of our preeminent voices from the fashion industry. And also joining us from Benaras is Himang Agarwal, who's a textile designer himself. Shaina, let me start by asking you, one of the first promises that the Prime Minister made after he became Prime Minister and even during the campaign was to rehabilitate or revive the weavers of Benaras. Many of them, lakhs of them in fact, are Muslims, and it was seen as politically as part of his minority outreach. But a few months after that, we saw a move to repeal this Handloom Act, and then craftsmen and craftswomen and activists started protesting. What is in your mind as you lead these designers to Benaras tomorrow?
I think Baika, it's only one agenda, which is to revive the textiles in Benaras. Why do artisans lose livelihood? Only because you have a one-odd order which is placed and then you have no repeat order because there is no commercial viability. I think it's absolutely a day to be proud that the entire fashion fraternity, close to 70 designers from all across the country, have decided to give back to the artisan, which is to ensure that they get good orders, there are design sensibilities, the collections are commercially viable, and hopefully under the Make in India, we can showcase to not just India but even the international platform that here is a product made in Benaras, which is made by the artisan, which is a tribute to the artisan. And I think that it's also time for us to not ape the West, but to show the West that Make in India truly means the best of the best for the world to view and to appreciate.
But is it going to be that simple? Shaina, I think the question is it going to be that simple? And I want to bring in Ritu, who's joining us from Benaras tonight. Ritu, the fact of the matter is that the handloom sector has been struggling, that the Benaras market, the sari market, the silk market is competing with China, that is putting its own fabric in the market at much lower cost. You have the power loom lobby that actually wants to decimate the handloom lobby. So what kind of odds are you really up against? Ritu, are you able to hear me? Okay, let me put the same question to you, Reena. What are the odds that we're talking about here?
Well, the reality is the powerloom and the mill-made sector is leaps ahead of what is called handloom sector. What is interesting in this one is that we have a designer for the first time and something to do with politics, and she's the current government.
You're talking about Shaina.
Shaina NC. So perhaps because she's a part of the industry, she has sped up the process. She's explained to us the urgency in the situation, wherein she is bringing in the designer who's like the tiger at the, the top of the food chain, wherein we create trends to revive the fashion of Benaras.
But why are people today, before I take this to Ritu, more fond of machine-produced products? Why is the Chinese competition impacting traditional textiles in the way it is?
Cheaper.
It's not just...
Once again, Ritu, I'm just coming to you.
Yeah, it's not just cheaper, because I do travel to China. Some of fabrics like organza, one of the big fabrics we get from Benaras, which can be used in Western and in Indian clothing. You get a better quality product, a heavier organza, probably a cheaper organza, and it doesn't crack from China. So these are some of the techniques and advancements they need to make, which I think some of the technicians need to understand, that the yarns have to be modulated. They need to be more flexible in experimentation now with the designers. And for us, I would think that we need to get a tag, something which qualifies this as unique.
as a separate selling point. Now, Ritu, if you can hear me, talk a little bit about why it's so difficult to keep traditional textiles alive. What are the vulnerabilities of the handloom sector today?
First of all, let me clarify that none of what I'm hearing is really what I think is the point in question. If you have an old monument, you pull it down to make a multi-storied building, it's ridiculous. You have to have both, the multi-storied building as well as the old monument.
Yeah.
Now here we are talking India's USP. The whole world has lost handlooms.
Yeah.
India is the only place which still is there. It is not a competition between the black lycra dress and an Indian Banarsi sari. They both exist in the space that they are there.
Yes.
Now what has happened is, like in any craft sector, there has been a disconnect of design, texture, aesthetics with importation of yarns, bad quality lyrics, and this Banarsi sari is no longer what it was and no longer aspirational. As a designer, in the last 10 months, I've been working in Benaras just to try and bring back that aesthetic. It is a design problem. It is a production problem, none of which is insurmountable.
No, but Ritu, I agree with you that the lycra dress can coexist with the traditional sari, and it's not either or, and the monument needs to be preserved. That's why we're having this discussion. But if you look at the figures, Ritu,
right.
If you look at the figures, there were 100,000 handlooms in Benaras, and today 60,000 of them are not operational. You have a generational problem.
Well,
you have traditional craftsmen whose children do not want, they want to be in power loom instead of handloom. So how do you compete with that?
Barkha, 1 minute.
Yeah.
1 minute. Let's first of all get one thing right. The Benaras sari was never every man, common man's sari.
Yeah.
It was the top of your line. It's your couture out of this country. So if it's never going to be able to feed 500,000 people, it was always a patronized piece.
Yeah.
It was your real, as I said, your couture out of India,
Yeah.
and it has to remain there.
Okay.
To a large extent, it is really our USP in this country. Nobody can do pattern fabrics like this anywhere in the world. China is finished, the rest of the world is also finished. So if I'm here designing it, which I've been doing for the last, or redesigning it for the last year, I would like to bring it back to what it is, not what can compete with China, but for its intrinsic
Fair
worth.
point, fair point. But Hemang Agarwal, what are the practical problems that the weavers of Benaras face? Because even during the election campaign, when I was meeting many of them, you know, there was a sense of demoralization. The sense of demoralization is very strong among the weavers community in Benaras.
That's true.
See, Barkha, predominantly this all starts from the fact that the demand has gone down, okay, over the years. Basically, Benaras has always been catering to the classics market, okay. Now, in time, in spite of the population increase, in spite of the kind of weddings which we are having, the segment which is going back to these classics, which wants these classics, has kind of moved away from Benaras. So basically, to solve the problems of the weavers or anybody associated with this whole trade and craft, is that firstly that we have to increase, or we have to approach more people, we have to get more people who are interested in this classics. That's one. Secondly, we have to evolve the product. You know, we have to evolve the product in a way that it also, a part of it also, we have to contemporize basically, so that we get a larger audience for the product.
That's right. The younger person has to be wearing the sari again.
Right, but the younger person, but you know, Hemang, the younger person today, you have a hundred sari packed to, which is hashtagging, encouraging people to wear a sari. That even to get people, Reena, to wear the sari today is a challenge, isn't it? Forget about the.
Barkha, when you get when you get married, you'll need one Banaras sari in your wardrobe. That's enough.
One Banarasi sari in your wardrobe when you get married. Reena, would that be enough to?
One is enough in this large population of our country.
Okay,
but it has to be a good Banaras sari.
Reena,
I would do something more contemporary, more real. I would like for the government, if they can play a role, is wherein we tag this as exclusive, as Benaras. wherein we give people the story behind it. And I think that might give it the angle of prestige, and it should be contemporary.
So it has to return to being
it should be
aspirational and not
tradition.
old-fashioned.
It depends on the designer who creates it, how he perceives it.
Shaina, none of you have spoken about the recent move. The Handloom Act almost got repealed. I know people like Ritu and Reena signed petitions to stop that from happening. Shaina, is that a settled issue? Because it was widely seen as the power loom moving in to displace the handloom.
Very good point.
No, I think it's pretty
Very,
settled.
very good point.
The fact that both can coexist is something which is a foregone. You will have the power looms in their space, but to revive handlooms and to consider that 27% of Varanasi's population is basically weavers.
Yeah.
And why should they be going to call centers or for jobs as security officers? Is it because there is no value of their craft? And if that is the case, you have the best design experts in the country who will revive it and who will give it a commercial sense. So it's not a one-odd order. We will hopefully have big designers setting up shop in
I think
Benaras,
Ritu has a question for you, Shaina. Ritu, I want you to come in because I know how strongly you feel about this. Shaina, I think Ritu has a question for you. Ritu, I know how strongly you feel about this Handloom Act that was going to be repealed. Go ahead with your question to the BJP tonight.
Well, I would like to know why the power loom wants to eat into the pie of the handlooms. Surely both of them can coexist. There is a place for them, of course, for the power loom as well as the handloom. Now, if the government is giving a subsidy of some sort of encouragement to the handlooms, why should the power looms be encouraged to take part of that action?
Yeah.
Surely some other scheme can be made for them.
Yeah.
Where does this even open up, and why does it even figure into the story with an area which is already under threat?
Yeah. Hemang, if you want to join the conversation, you spoke about contemporizing.
I think if I can just reply.
Yeah, okay, Shaina, reply then Hemang. Shaina, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just think a quick point. The fact that both can coexist is a foregone, and yes, we are, as the government, look at what our textile minister, Mr. Santosh Gangwar, and the entire segment is doing. They are only trying to ensure that handlooms are revived and weavers get back their livelihood.
You almost scrapped the act
example,
that, Shaina, you almost scrapped the act that protected the
but
handloom industry, that protected these weavers. So can we get a guarantee from the BJP that that's not going to happen?
Absolutely.
I think that would be a very good idea.
A case study. If you have a case study of what Mr. Narendra Modi did as Chief Minister of Gujarat with tribal women, where only through skill development they were earning 8,000, they earn close to 16 and 20,000 rupees today.
Okay.
So if we ensure that the handloom sector is revived in a competitive spirit with good product, good quality, repeat orders, I'm sure that this will
We're just
ensure
saying this is a vulnerable industry, vulnerable community. Now, Hemang, you spoke about... Yeah, once again, I just want to get Hemang in and then Ritu and Reena can come in. Hemang, you spoke about contemporizing the classic. Now, how do you do that? How do you not lose the traditional beauty of the hand-woven product and make it, if there was a phase in the middle, I remember when people tried to modernize the sari, and according to me, it just looked god-awful. I mean, there is a space for just protecting things as they were. Everything doesn't have to be modernized.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Hemang?
But it becomes
absolutely.
a trend.
I think so in the last 30 years.
Yeah, Hemang.
In the last 30 years, I think so what we have done is we have over-designed the sari,
Right.
traditional Banarasi sari.
Needs
So
editing.
we have to basically edit whatever, has to be edited out of it. And then when I said we have to reinvent the classics, I don't mean everything which is classic has to go out of the window. Yeah. Obviously, we have to take out the good things which were there. There was always this pride I've seen young ladies who speak fondly of the sari which their mother wore to their weddings, and still that the Benaras always connects emotionally. A Banarsi sari is not only about the warp and the weft, it's also about the emotions which connect it with. I'm sure most of our mothers have worn a Banarsi sari at the day of their weddings. Sure. So it's basically that emotion which we still, that's the strongest point, it still stays. And then, see, the world is going contemporary. There is a huge demand for the garments, there is a huge demand for modern garments. So that's also a segment which I think so can be evolved. And I'm so happy that so many of the designers, I mean, be it from Bombay, be it from Delhi, who are coming, and everybody has their own sensibilities. A sensibility of Mrs. Kumar will be entirely different from sensibilities of Ms. Dhaka and so many others. So we want those sensibilities to come into Benaras and to evolve the product.
Yeah,
you know,
I get what you're saying, but Reena, when we were talking before the program started, you said one of the reasons that young people do not want to wear Banarsi sarees is because they feel fat in them.
Yeah.
I mean, this has to be the most insane reason I've heard so far.
Fulawa, you know that.
No, but there's a valid reason. Hello, there's a valid reason, Barkha. The actual Benaras sarees
My director saying in my ear that the material is poofy and puffy and it's puffy.
It's the organza, I think so. Ritu might
it's puffy because it's puffy because they made it
I
so.
just come into the
original Banarsi saree was sexy.
Yeah.
It was very drapey and it had a gorgeous aesthetic. It made you look glamorous. I don't know any other argument that I can put forward to wearing anything in the world, regardless of whether it's modern or whether it's ancient. But the only one thing that I would say is that this has brought this to attention. The first time in a long time people are talking about handcrafted anything.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that that's happening. And let's just go for positives here. And what has happened has happened. At least let's look at this. Let's look at what we've got.
But let's just, Shaida, I know you wanted to speak, but Reena's been trying to make a point. One second, Shaida.
Well, I do know it's fluffy and all that, but which is why a lot of the younger designers, the collections are now being sold as ready to wear all over the world. So if sampling becomes an area of interest and design becomes developed in Benaras and the weavers cooperative or whatever the speed time delivery situation, and we're consistent. I do think it's a long journey, but it's a ripple effect. Over time.
Would you be looking for, as designers, would you be looking for economic incentives from the government?
I think the government should tag this as a special handloom or Benaras or some revival line. It would be nice to get prestige along with it, either in form of museums, displays, fairs, recognition with it. And yes, they keep talking Make in India. It would be great if Make in India was having some kind of a stipend or discounts.
Shaina, come in on that designers in the end would be looking for economic viability.
Yes.
Shaina.
We are hopefully going to exhibit it as Make in India by so-and-so designer, Make in India by so-and-so designer. But just coming very briefly to drape, because that's something I'm passionate about. Barkha, the sari is the most beautiful garment in the world, and so sad that we see a Jemima Khan, a Sherry Blair, a Liz Hurley wearing a sari and we go, wow, wow. When we have it right here, draping is the least of the problems. If at all, the priestess sari, the ready-to-wear sari, the myriad drapes of a sari is all something which will fall into line once we have the product. Okay. And I can tell you with conviction, this younger generation that so-called wants to wear the cocktail gown will switch to the sensuous sari which belonged to us and which is actually an emblem of Indianness.
Last word to you, Ritu.
Yeah. Well, I basically feel that there is no more, as I said earlier, there's no modern and no ancient as far as aesthetics and glamour are concerned. Something that has made us look so great. And no matter what age, if you have textiles around you, it's the only culture left in the world which enjoys their textiles. And why are we in such a hurry to kill them by just saying that we have to be modern? It's not modern. It is just being too minimalistic. We're not a minimal culture, so we should celebrate what we have. And let us, if the government has to pay people to come and design, so be it, like any other profession. But we shouldn't shy away from that either.
Absolutely.
The government
Here
has
we're
been
hoping
totally
it's a
unprofessional
CSR activity.
in this, with their weaver service centers. They're all crumbling, dying. If they need to bring in designers and pay them, so be it. And it is the way to go in future.
Okay, we'll leave it there. We'll wait to see what all of you do.
I'm hoping the designers will do it as a CSR activity.
But in the
I'm doing it as a CSR. So
but in the end, it has to become an economically
coming in and working here.
Yes, it has to be an economically viable industry as well for it to get new life. But I'm glad that the effort is being made. Shaina NC, Reena Dhaka, Ritu Kumar, and Himang Agarwal. Thank you for joining us on the Buck Stops here. We'll see you tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Thanks for watching.